All right, here we go. Welcome back to the weekly SKTLs volunteer / community call. Good to be back. Cody Willard and Geraci. We, I guess, took a week off of the YouTube call last week, but we're back on here live. How'd it go last week? And we got a couple things to talk about right off the bat, but go ahead.
It went very well, and now that you mentioned it, I should publish last week's call to our YouTube channel so that if anybody wants to, they could go back and watch it.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Good point.
Well, let's, I guess, start off with, some just industry news. So I saw where Virgin Orbit is basically in bankruptcy auction for whatever remaining assets they have. I saw Rocket Labs was picking up some scraps. What all's going on with that?
Well, the Virgin deorbited and burned up on reentry. $35 million.
And what was it once worth?
Yeah, like 2 or 3 billion at the top.
Yeah, a couple billion. They raised $1 billion. It was worth a couple. And poof is, I think, the appropriate verb. It's things like this, they're going to happen. History's loaded with them. And when you have a brand like that, people assume, oh, there's no way. This is something that's going to be solid. Look who's behind it, et cetera, et cetera. But, Branson's an astute investor. He drew a line as to when he was going to stop writing checks. And then he stood back and, watched it incinerate, as, disciplined investors will do. But this is the kind of thing that gives pause to investors, because now they don't necessarily assume that if a founder has a great reputation for having done a lot of things, or if there seems to be a lot of money behind the company at the beginning, that is not a guarantee of success. That is not a indicator of future performance. And so there's a real, there's risk that gets introduced into the equation, and it spooks people just the way when, we had a couple of SPACs drop to their knees, people flinched, and look what it did to that financing mechanism. So I think
it up, to be clear.
Yeah.
That being said, 2 points I'll throw in here. 3 points. Number one, Rocket Lab did a great job coming in and buying assets that are valuable on the cheap. They bought the entire 165,000 square feet of headquarters in, is it California or Florida? Where was Virgin Orbit? California, I think.
I thought I saw California.
Yeah. So they picked up these headquarters, for cents on the dollar. And those assets are real. There are still some assets that Virgin Orbit did not sell. They still have their intellectual property, which maybe there's some value there. We've talked before a few weeks ago about the importance of the ability to do horizontal launching instead of vertical launching. If you can use the airplane, which is what Virgin Orbit and Virgin Galactic are both designed to shoot up stuff to space off of the bottom of a giant 747 airplane. And it's not a bad idea. We've talked extensively. Dan's talked about the importance of needing that, because most spaceports in the United States are horizontal setup, not vertical setup. The other point I will make is that it's good to have we need more bankruptcies to wash out space stocks. We need to wash out EV stocks. We still need Lordstown to outright go bankrupt, Nikola to go bankrupt. I think Fisker is going to have trouble. It has much more money than the ones I just mentioned, and the stock is at 6, not 50 cents. But there are there are dozens, hundreds of companies that came public in SPACs and or otherwise in the last 3 to 4 years that need to go to zero. their business models are not sustainable. Nobody needs to throw any more money at those, at the current iteration of those companies, how they're set up, and with the equity that exists right now, it just needs to go to zero. Some bondholders and or new buyers can come in and pick up the assets on the cheap. Astra, we've talked about before. I think it's probably doomed also. And then finally, the point I will make is that, like, it's bullish for Rocket Lab and other companies that don't go bankrupt. Like, fewer survivors means less competition. And Rocket Lab has talked about the fact that they are receiving orders that from companies who were scheduled to be launched on an Astra ship or on a Virgin Orbit ship, and they no longer can. So Rocket Lab will benefit from that, as will SpaceX. Full disclosure, I'm an investor in both companies, and so I'm obviously have desire that those companies do great and stocks and values go higher of the companies I own. I never owned any Virgin Orbit. I did own some Virgin Galactic for a while, and I sold it when the company never raised any money. When they had Virgin Galactic had a $20 billion market cap at the top. They could have raised $2 billion cash by doing a 10% dilution, and instead never did. And the company rightfully went down 80-90% after that. So, but it's good to have some bankruptcies. It's bullish to get rid of bad companies. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want to see in a bear, because if we were not seeing it, the bear can't end, really. Like, no matter what industry or market, like, these are the bottom, I don't know, you're not calling a bottom here, but the bottom signals that eventually have to occur in order to come out the other side.
Well, there will be a thinning of the herd, and needless to say. And I think what we have to watch for, and we talk about intellectual property that's left at Virgin for horizontal launch. Orbital Sciences was doing this a long time ago, before Branson decided to even get in the space business. And so there's only so much IP of value for a horizontal launch capability, underbelly launch or underwing launch. But I think what's going to be a bigger issue is going to be around, who's able to pick up things at a deep discount. So, Rocket Lab did a great job picking things up. I mean, you basically have to have a few pennies in your pocket and be willing to shop in order to get that kind of a deal. It wasn't like somebody had to go do a capital raise to pick up the assets of the company. I had breakfast this morning with the founder of a great young launch company, Phantom Space, and Jim Cantrell. And you talk about who's getting the bulk coming to them, right? They picked up 60 launches at Vandenberg, and they've got allocations of space at Kennedy, and they've got offshore things they're going to be doing for launch facilities, vertical. And this is where you're going to see island nations really becoming major players because of their access to the equator and their perfect ability to make up their own rules as they go along. They don't have to deal with all kinds of special interest groups to say, hey, here we've got 25 islands in our chain. Here's one. Go put a launch pad on it, knock yourself out, and thank you very much for the money. And I think that's going to be a big part of this. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people out of business. But I mean, I don't wish it on anybody, because there are investors burned in every instance that it happens. But the strong evolution, Darwin was right. The survival of the fittest will once again come to the space industry, as it has pretty much everywhere else.
And Schumpeter's, what is it? Creative destruction.
Yeah.
Part of the process, destroying those that cannot survive. And I mean, the thing about capitalism, and I'm not going to defend capitalism per se, but the fact is that capitalism rewards companies and people who provide services that are in demand. And if you do a good job of providing those services or products to the society, you get higher margins and you make more money. And if you can't provide services at a profitable clip, then you go to zero. And Virgin Orbit is one of many that are headed to zero this year. There will be dozens, if not hundreds more, not space stocks per se, but lots and lots of other stocks. I wonder if I'm going to keep saying per se the rest of the conversation.
Is it too soon for AI stocks to be included in that category?
Oh, God.
Oh, it is too soon, but there are hundreds of
They still need to bubble
in the
more.
AI industry that are raising money right now at an unreasonable valuation, and half of those will go to zero. I think there are a handful of publicly traded AI stocks headed to zero, including, believe it or not, C3 AI, the symbol AI. I think it's got problems. And there's Sprinkler AI, Cloud. And I love these companies like SoundCloud that are, it's like a crappy .com company. And they're like, what we should do? Let's add the word AI to the end of our name. And the stock was up 300% from $1 to $3.50. I would sell that sucker. It is, AI ain't saving SoundCloud.
Well, here's the
That's
real
what happened
risk.
a few years ago with just like Riot. Like, let's add blockchain to our name. So it was like, it's the same thing.
It was a nice tea company before it was a blockchain company.
Right.
It was Long Island iced tea, if I'm not mistaken.
By the way, here's one to watch. So AI-driven portfolios, Cody, where the AI will start favoring AI stocks and start putting a heavy weight on its own brethren to drive up the value of AI companies by, you got to watch out. Those AI portfolio managers. That's right. Those AI portfolio managers are going to start playing favorites.
3 or 4 months ago, I went to ChatGPT and to Bard, and I asked them both, pick a stock that Cody Willard would want to invest in. And it was like, Cody Willard is a well-known innovation investor, blah, blah, blah. And it picked AI stocks. One of them told me to buy NVIDIA. The other one told me to buy AMD. I thought they were already crowded when it told me to do that. The fact is, AMD and NVIDIA both went up like another 15, 20% since I wrote that article. So, maybe it was on to something. I do think, as I wrote in Trading with Cody today for my subscribers, that AI is overhyped at the time. And we've seen these cycles before. It's not like the .com didn't actually change the world. But in the year 2000, there were hundreds of .com stocks that crashed 90 to 100% over the next 2 years. And the same is going to play out in AI. We've got dozens of AI stocks that'll go down 50 to 90 and even some 100% in the next year.
AI is on a runaway. It's a runaway train in terms of dragging people into its vortex of popularity and use, and you can't unscramble that egg as you go forward. It's like unscrambling the TikTok problem. But it's so much fun, says 90% of the population, having no clue of what may or may not be the risk. And so I think AI, there's going to be a public square battle over, good AI versus bad AI, because as history has shown, software technology always is well ahead of the environment that needs to regulate or monitor it. And so it's always catching up. We've been through this with .com, and we're going to go through it with AI. It's out of the barn. It's already doing its thing, and people are still trying to figure out what to do about it. And I think there's going to be some interesting political theater around this in terms of policy, frankly.
Is interesting the right word? Is interesting? Is the political theater actually going to be interesting, or is it going to be annoying?
Well, yeah, probably annoying. Or I can think of a few other words, but I won't use them here. It's a family show, so.
As my daughter would say, is it though? I don't even know if it's a family show. Maybe you should just say what you're thinking, Dan. Hey, any other space news this week, Dan? I've seen quite a few articles lately about space debris, but they haven't advanced the topic really. It's just there's always a lot of focus on space debris, and if not much space, actually, you know what? There was a launch of 4 astronauts to the space station by SpaceX for Axiom today. Yet another company that I am an investor in. But the fact that I almost just glossed over that as non-news underscores how amazing SpaceX is, that we just are sending people up to the space. We're sending people to outer space routinely now. It's not even news. It wasn't on any of the news channels.
But history has been this way with space. People go bananas over the first few launches. They watch everything. They can't believe it. All the way back to the Apollo missions, when Apollo 11 lands on the moon. Then Apollo 12 goes up, lands on the moon. Everybody's going nuts. Apollo 13 goes up. The mission wasn't even being broadcast on any network television. It wasn't being covered. And it was only until they had the accident on Apollo 13 that the major networks decided to pick up coverage, because people had already said, oh, here goes another one. And so there's something with the public that there's an expectation, that, okay, well, this is going to be amazing. And then the second one is like, wow, it was amazing twice. And after that, it's okay, so another one. So what? This happened with the Blue Origin flights. After the second one, it was a yawn. Oh, yeah, they sent up another one. Big deal. Same as before.
Yeah. Well, but that being said, Dan, the Blue Origin didn't even get above the Kármán line. It did not actually get to outer space. So it was sort of boring. It's like, you're like going up as high as a balloon. It's not even that exciting.
It wasn't boring at the time. It was people going up and paying boatloads of money, and look at all the rich people getting a ride, and all the other people who got a free ride just so that they could be put on there for posterity's sake and a photo op. And it was like, yeah, okay, now what?
Captain Kirk.
Yep.
Yeah, but like, now what? And so it's not going to be, unfortunately, it's either something catastrophic or a first. Those are the only things that get people's attention anymore, because there's way too much junk going on in everybody's lives, and there's too much news stuff hitting everybody's head every day. So I think it's going to be firsts for space that are going to have to be, Starship goes up, Starship, delivers a few hundred Starlinks. There's people in Starship now. Oh, we're putting something around the moon. We're taking a flight to Mars. That gets all the excitement. But until we have people landing back on the moon, people orbiting Mars for the first time and getting those close-ups and orbiting the planet, people, they're just not going to pay attention the way they should. Evidence being, how many people really know what's going on in the space economy? They don't. How many people really know how it's affecting them? They don't. Any more than they understand what's going on in orbit between us and our adversaries. You can put it in the news. Problem is, 98% of the people don't watch or listen or read the news. That's a problem.
I would say it's a much lower percentage. There's Fox News, MSNBC, CNN get a million. I'm going to say it's about 70% of the people don't watch or read or pay attention to the news. Problem is, what the news chooses to cover and how it frames everything also gets you lost instead of help.
The 30% pay attention to headlines, maybe.
Yeah, there you go.
And so whatever soundbite you can promote, you can shift public opinion by 10 words that have nothing to do with reality. I think
I'd argue that's the problem with this country and how we got
Yes,
here over the past
that's
5 to 10 years anyway.
That's right.
Can I mention one other thing that you know, the saying that you should never meet your idols, your heroes?
Yeah.
I met all kinds of my heroes when I was on Fox, right? It was a regular gig to interview someone like Gene Simmons, who was a total jerk. Paul Stanley was actually pretty cool. But like LL Cool J, amazing. Bob Weir actually ended up becoming one of my great friends. Like I'm not name dropping per se, but I'm using per se again. But I had the chance to meet Captain Kirk. He was in the green room, but going on Fox right before I was going to go on a show, and we were sitting there, and I could hear him talking to the makeup lady that had just finished my makeup, and someone came in, and they knew I was a big Trekkie, and they were like, "Hey, Cody, William Shatner's next door," and I was like, "Oh my God, no!" And I ran. Because I do not want to pop my Captain Kirk bubble. I don't need to meet the actual Captain Kirk. I want him to live on in my mind, going to space. Like William Shatner went to space now. That's why the reason I bring it up is because he is one of those guys who they took. Jeff Bezos threw him on a Blue Origin flight because why not? It's Captain Kirk. You better send him to space, man. So I did meet Captain Kirk, and I'm happy about that.
I did meet him on a flight once, and he's extremely cordial and funny, and he's a regular guy, and God bless him at his age right now. I mean, he's more active than he ever was in his entire career. So
just something that I would like to not a good cat. I do it better Jimmy Stewart
all the way back to the Twilight Zone. For those old enough to remember.
If you Google William Shatner Twilight Zone, you'll see him in an episode.
Spock.
Did you know that, Cabana? Did you?
Are you out of your Vulcan mind?
Oh, brother.
So look, space. We did have a launch this week. We did pay out over 1 million tokens of awards to existing token holders, which was an APY of about 14% last month, annual percentage rate, which is the highest payout we've had so far. The reason why was because we sent a satellite to orbit Jupiter the month before. This month, with 4 astronauts and dozens of other Starlink and bias. Again, it's just not even reported, but SpaceX delivered like 4 or 5 other missions for other companies, old school satellite companies, Viasat, which, by the way, I'm short. I don't own that one. I'm betting against it. And who was the other one they delivered it for? There's another old school satellite company. They sent some up for OneWeb, which has been bankrupt before. With all of those satellites and astronauts being sent up, the SKTLs payout this month to existing SKTL holders will be another, won't be quite 1 million, I suppose, but it'll probably be about 7 or 8% APY rate. So very excited.
They're just in the trucking industry now. That's all. The trucks just go vertical. They drop stuff off and they come home. It's not so exciting anymore.
You know what would be impressive? If they dropped something off and then picked something up before they came home. Now that would be a nice trick. They should throw the Starship up there, throw out a bunch of satellites out, and then open the hatch up and catch a bunch of space debris and then bring it back. Now that will be a mission. That'll be impressive. It is amazing that it's like Star Trek had tablets, iPads, basically, right? And they had medical applications on iPads. The doctor Bones would be like, "Hey, let me scan you and look at this pad." And then they had ways of talking through wireless communications, and the things in Star Trek come along. So, holodecks, right? I mean, a 3D
Yeah.
Saying that virtual reality, those things exist in Star Trek, and mankind does deliver that. It is amazing that we were already going to space 50 years ago via NASA, going to the moon 50 years ago, 1969. And we're here today hoping that we can actually get to the moon in the next 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, it's sad.
It is sad.
But Star Trek was developed with all verifiable, plausible physics. So it wasn't fantasy; it was hard science fiction, as it's called. And the flip phone, that was one of the first cell phones that came out. That was based on the communicator on Star Trek, that flip open communicator. The tricorder you're talking about for scanning people and everything, they exist today. A lot of that technology, the reason it happens is because the engineers who grow up and go to these companies to develop things grew up on science fiction. They grew up on those, and they are in a position to create what they saw. It's not a coincidence that we had a flip phone. It was somebody saying, and that was called the StarTAC, Motorola.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember?
Motorola StarTAC.
It was because that is what was created from a science fiction standpoint, and somebody decided to make it reality. So, that's where a lot of the coolness comes from. It's because people grew up as sci-fi fans, and a lot of engineers, many engineers, I might even say most, are science fiction fans.
Can I just mention that while we're talking sort of about AI, if I may go back to it for a moment, NVIDIA just reported earnings, added about $120 billion to their market cap after hours. It's up 15%. Amazing.
What? All right, I'm down.
Yeah.
How about Snowflake, Cody?
It's down 12% after hours.
Ah, see, you had to ruin it. All right.
Yeah, sorry. Trading with Cody subscribers have seen me talking about NVIDIA as an AI play since when, Cabana?
I mean, as an AI play, before AI. Like
2016.
Yeah.
2016 was my first article about NVIDIA going to be an AI play. 7 years at $7 a share. If you haven't, go check out tradingwithcody.com. This is not supposed to be a commercial for tradingwithcody.com, but why not?
You have Trading with Cody in your name there, so why not?
We paid $7 for it. It's at $3.50. So
that's wild. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people were looking at today and be like, okay, this has to be it. This has to be it. And no, it just kept on chugging. It sounds like.
I would say I would not want to be chasing it.
No,
right at this minute. I would not want to be the guy buying it at $3.51 after hours right now. That's a lot.
People have
$870 billion market cap at $3.51.
People have a subconscious aversion to price because of how they shop and buy things. And so stocks that are never split, that run to these large, share prices, people have this wrongly believed notion that, it's expensive. Well, what do you mean? It's the value of the company that you better be concerned about, not the share price. And I think a lot of people make decisions on share price, not on valuation.
If that were the case, nobody would ever buy a Berkshire Hathaway stock.
Exactly. And that
by the way, NVIDIA has split 2-for-1 since I bought it 7 years ago, but it was a while ago. They could do another one now. Wouldn't shock me. Maybe that's why the stock's up after hours. They had a good quarter, and they're splitting 2-for-1.
Oh,
just
boy.
Kidding. I don't know. All right, Cabana, anything else? We're 30 minutes in. I'm going to go read about Snow and NVIDIA, and then worry about my hedge fund. That's,
there you go.
Around here.
Well, that's a hedge, one up, one down. So
yeah, I guess.
It's a hedge fund. It's a hedge fund, but you're not going to come out in favor of capitalism. Okay, fine, no problem.
I didn't say I wasn't coming. I just said I'm not defending capitalism on this call. And frankly, I don't want to die. You got to pick and fight and choose your battles. I don't need to die on the capitalism cross. There are other crosses to die on, not that one. Capitalism's got its problems too.
Yeah, well,
There you go. Well, I guess we'll wrap with that. We are 30 minutes on the dot. And yeah, good stuff as always. And I guess we'll see everybody next week. Same time.
Thanks, Cabana. Thank you, Dan.
I will be in the air next week. Yes.
Above the Kármán line?
Unfortunately not.
Not quite.
I guess
that
if
high.
you were above the Kármán line, you wouldn't be in air. You'd be in vacuum.
That's right. That's right. I will be
So
in a pressurized cabin at that moment. Unfortunately, traveling to beautiful Washington D.C. Otherwise known as Hollywood for ugly people. So anyway, I will miss
Safe
you.
travels, Dano. We'll see you the next week.
Take care.
All right, everybody. Take
Bye,
care.
everybody.